Okay, this video is about Marilyn Monroe, John F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, and Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now you got to ask yourself, what has Marilyn Monroe got to do with a former five-star general, hero of World War II, John F. Kennedy, former president, Bobby Kennedy, former attorney general? You got to ask yourself, what is the correlation? Well, that's what this video is about. And we are going to talk about all that. Bam. I tell you what. Bam, bam, bam. And you're going to say, wow. All right. Marilyn Monroe and Area 51. There exists a CIA document from 1962 on Marilyn Monroe, Howard Rothberg, and Dorothy Kilgallen, which refers to a visit by the president at a secret air base for the purpose of inspecting things from outer space. This document is the real deal, and that secret air base is Area 51, also known as Dreamland, and it's located in the Nevada desert. Now, everybody knows about Area 51. It was denied for years and years and years as non-existent. And Obama, I believe, came forward and said, oh yeah, Area 51, it exists. So the government had to come forward and say, yeah, Area 51 exists, and it's used for testing, building and testing secret aircraft, cutting-edge secret aircraft. Well, everybody knew that for many, many years. They also know that they reverse engineer crashed UFOs, recovered UFOs there. They bring them to Area 51 and they reverse engineer them. They also work on alternate energy devices. There's many things. You should check out Greer's disclosure on all this information. There's been much written about Area 51. I won't get into that, but that's what this is about, Marilyn Monroe and Area 51. Okay, in 1962, that was the year in which Marilyn Monroe mysteriously died. 1962 also saw the release of a book that 2 years later was turned into an award-winning movie. The title, 7 Days in May. It's an absorbing, thought-provoking account of an attempted military coup to take control of the U.S. government. Its authors were Charles W. Bailey II and Fletcher Knebel, who in 1960, interestingly enough, wrote a chapter on JFK for a book titled Candidate 1960. Now, if you didn't know, JFK ran for the presidency against Nixon in 1960, and he won. And he was president until 1963 when he was assassinated. And I've got a lot to say about that, but that's not this. This video is not about that. The book was so well received and became such a huge seller that it wasn't long at all before Hollywood was knocking on the doors of the publisher, and they wanted to make a movie about it. And it wasn't long after that, specifically in February 1964, that the movie version of the book hit cinemas all over the world. Interestingly enough, the screenplay for the movie was written by Rod Serling of the Twilight Zone fame. If you don't know who Rod Serling is, he was the creator of the Twilight Zone, a hugely successful television show. I watched it when I was a kid. Awesome show, all about supernatural and magical things that you just wouldn't believe. Serling was also a significant figure in the field of anti-war activism, to the extent that several intelligence agencies had files on him, including the FBI. Well, Hoover and the FBI had files on everyone, so that was there's no history, no secret there. Okay, Serling knew all about the horrors of war as he served 4 years in World War II. He was a U.S. Army airborne paratrooper and demolition specialist with the 511th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 11th Airborne Division. His military service was a turning point in his life and influenced much of his writing, experiencing combat for the first time in November 1944 on the Philippine island of Leyte, where he saw extensive casualties and many demolition missions and firefights where he was wounded and awarded the Purple Heart Medal. He was also awarded the Bronze Star for bravery and the Philippine Liberation Medal, and he would have many other medals, of course. Combat Infantry Badge, he would have won that. Asiatic Pacific Campaign, World War II Victory Medal, many things. He had nightmares and flashbacks of his wartime experiences, and they haunted him constantly once he got back to the States. One particular event while serving in World War II would dramatically change his life and writings. While serving in the Battle of Leyte Gulf in the Pacific, an Army Air Corps plane dropped a box of ammo that landed on Serling's best friend and instantly killed him. This horrible sight gave him inspiration of many of his Twilight Zone scripts and stories. His Hollywood movie, 7 Days in May, starred a number of major movie stars of that era, including Kirk Douglas, Ava Gardner, Burt Lancaster, Frederick March, Martin Balsam, and Edmund O'Brien. In the story, Lancaster's character of General James Mattoon Scott secretly initiates a plan to take over the elected U.S. government. General Scott sees President Lehman's plans to enter into a nuclear treaty with the Soviet Union as weak and ineffectual and a danger to U.S. national security and to the American people. So he tried to stage a coup, according to this movie, and it was in the book. It's only when Kirk Douglas's character of Colonel Jiggs Casey stumbles on strands of the plan that things slowly start to unravel. To his horror, Casey comes to realize that what begins as a wild suspicion is an all too real fact. The government is about to be toppled in favor of a new military-driven government. When Casey speaks with the president and his closest aide, their response is filled with nothing but skepticism. But at least at first, but only when Casey shares that what he has found out, the president begins to realize that the plan is real, and steps are taken to stop the coup and have the conspirators arrested as traitors. So a race begins. It's a race which will decide the very future of the United States. Now that's the movie, and Serling wrote that. And it's interesting, as an aside here, Kirk Douglas is still alive. I think he's 104, and he's still alive. He's the only one that I know of in all this that's still alive. All these other actors are gone. All right, so there's more about the book here, which I don't need to read. But as the story progresses, we see a mysterious death mounting. Oh, I better read this part. I guess it does make sense. Unbeknownst to just about everyone outside of the planned coup, including the president and his entire team, a top secret facility has been established out in the desert outside of El Paso, Texas. It's the headquarters of the organization which wishes to overthrow the White House, an organization we come to learn is known as ECOMCON, or Emergency Communications Control. Senator Clark is ordered to find the base. At first, Clark is doubtful that such a secret installation could have been constructed without any kind of congressional oversight or funding. That is, until he sees it for himself. Clark learns its code name is Site Y. As the story progresses, we see a mysterious death, mounting conspiracies, and intrigue and mystery. And we learn more about that Area 51 style secret base known as Site Y. And finally, there is a confrontation between the president and General Scott, a confrontation which brings the country back from the brink of a military dictatorship. So What has this all got to do with Marilyn Monroe? Well, the document that was concerning Marilyn Monroe's knowledge of a secret air base was written in 1962, the same year in which the book was written, 7 Days in May, and was released and became a bestseller, and which had at its heart classified installation that is practically impenetrable and which not even the president knows about. And in 1964, the movie spin-off further exposed to the world the Area 51-like base. This proves that there had been a leak of a secret Area 51 base back in the early 1960s. All right, so this proves that the Area 51 was leaked, and what they did is they called it Area Y in the book because they couldn't call it Area 51. Probably back then they didn't call it that. Well, they probably did, but it was super secret. And there was a leak of the secret Area 51 back in the early 1960s. This leak came from Marilyn Monroe. And it was while she was having an affair with JFK and his brother Bobby. Now, a lot of people don't know that, but Marilyn Monroe was having sexual relations with John F. Kennedy and his brother Bobby. Now, I don't know if they knew each other was doing that. They probably did. They were horn dogs. If you go back and research JFK and Bobby, you'll find out they were great men. I do admire them, but they were horn dogs. They loved their women and they had their fun. There's no doubt about that. And if you research a lot of powerful men, you'll find that this is the norm, and not the. It's not unknown. It's very common. All right, so this affair inspired her, and somehow the two enterprising writers focused on that clandestine facility that operated in secret and outside of the elected government. This leak was the equivalent of the Edward Snowden disclosure. Everyone now knows that the Area 51 installation is buried deep in the desert in Groom Lake, Nevada. That's where it is. And most people in the government today have no idea what goes on there. Not even the Congress can figure out where it gets its funding from. And access to the base is almost impossible unless you have the required clearance and need to know. Now, former President and former five-star General Dwight D. Eisenhower, at the time he was actually president, he was 8-year, he had 2 terms, he wanted to visit Area 51. He wanted to go and inspect it. And he wanted to see it so badly, and he was denied. They said, you don't have the clearance, and it's a need to know, and you have no need to know. Well, you're going to tell that to a former five-star general and current sitting president? That guy? Are you kidding? So what he did is he went to the commander. He threatened an invasion by the entire First Army. He said, I will come in there, invade Area 51 with the First Army, or you let me in. And they did. They let him inside. And what he found there was so unsettling that it did change him. And on his way out, he warned us about the corrupt and sinister military-industrial complex on his farewell speech to the American people when he was leaving office. And while doing so, if you watch that, go ahead, it's on YouTube, go watch that address to the American people. And when he was telling everyone he was warning us about the military-industrial complex and how corrupt it was. He was warning us. And while he was doing so, he was visibly scared. You can look at his eyes. And if a sitting president and former five-star general is scared of the military-industrial complex, then you know how powerful they really are. And it should be noted that the writers of the book, the author, the co-authors, and the author of the 7 Days in May, also had a great deal of distrust of government and the intelligence community. And his books, which include this book, obviously, and Trespass, Sabotage, and Vanished, are riddled with varying degrees of conspiracy. It's also a fact that he had a number of unnamed insiders in government who helped ensure the accuracy of some of the concepts, details, and government protocol. And they were all presented in his books, including Area 51, which he covertly changed to Site Y. They couldn't, in this book, 7 Days in May, couldn't call it Area 51, called it Site Y. Now, it is now known, and it's a fact, that Marilyn Monroe was assassinated because of the secrets she knew about Area 51, UFOs, extraterrestrial beings, and more that she gleaned from John and Bobby Kennedy. And it's known that she methodically recorded all of these secrets in her personal diary. And after her staged death, where she was found in the nude, her apartment was searched, but her diary was never found. I'm sure they went in, staged her death, they found her diary, and it was destroyed. I'm sure they completely destroyed it. Although a lot of these agencies like to keep these kinds of things as trophies, but it was probably destroyed. So that's the story of Area 51, John F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, Rod Serling, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and these guys that wrote Fletcher Knobel, is it? That wrote 7 Days in May. Now that sounds like a great book to read, a great movie to watch. And I think, I know I've seen it, but it was a long, long time ago. I should probably go on Netflix. It's probably on there. I can watch it again. So what do you think about Marilyn Monroe? What do you think about JFK, Bobby Kennedy? What do you think about Dwight D. Eisenhower, Area 51? Please put your comments in. I'd like to read what you think about it. Also, if you have any other insights or information, go ahead and put it in the comments. Like this video, share it out there, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Please subscribe. And I want to thank all my subscribers, and I wish everyone a happy evening, and God bless you and yours, and have a great rest of your week. Take care, everyone. Signing off. Chemtrails, MN.